What would you do if the person who was supposed to welcome you into their family turned out to be your greatest enemy? What if the woman who smiled at you across the dinner table had a secret so dark, so deadly, that it could destroy everything you loved? This is not just a story, this is my life. And it all started with a single sip of wine. A sip that was meant for me, but ended up changing everything. Strap in, because this is a tale of betrayal, survival, and a twist so shocking, you'll be questioning everything you thought you knew about family. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's a story of love, deception, and a mother-in-law who crossed a line no one should ever cross. This is the story of how my mother-in-law tried to poison me, but my husband took the sip instead. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and hit that like button. Trust me, you don't want to miss a single detail of this unbelievable tale. And if you've ever experienced family drama that feels like it's straight out of a thriller movie, drop a comment below. Let's get started. I've noticed only 98% of you who watch haven't subscribed. Come on, guys, show some love and support. Thanks a bunch to those who have already subscribed. The beginning of a dream. When I first met Daniel, I thought I'd found my happily ever after. He was everything I'd ever wanted. Kind, thoughtful, and with a smile that could light up the darkest room. We met at a coffee shop of all places. I was struggling to open a stubborn jar of sugar, and he offered to help. From that moment, we were inseparable. Our relationship moved quickly. Within a year, we were engaged, and 6 months later, we were married. It was a small, intimate wedding, just close friends and family. I remember looking into Daniel's eyes as we exchanged vows, feeling like the luckiest woman in the world. But there was one thing I didn't fully consider: his family, specifically his mother, Margaret. The first red flags from the moment I met Margaret, there was something off. She was polite, sure, but her smiles never reached her eyes. She'd make backhanded compliments about my cooking, my career, even the way I dressed. At first, I brushed it off. After all, she was Daniel's mom, and I wanted to make a good impression. But as the months went by, her behavior grew more unsettling. She'd show up unannounced at our house, rearrange my kitchen, and even comment on how I managed our finances. Daniel always defended her, saying she was just looking out for us. "She's old-fashioned," he'd say. "She means well." I wanted to believe him, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that she resented me. The tension builds. The tension between Margaret and me grew worse over time. She called Daniel multiple times a day, often interrupting our date nights or even our work hours. She'd criticize everything I did, from the way I folded laundry to the way I decorated our home. It felt like she was trying to drive a wedge between us. I tried to talk to Daniel about it, but he'd just laugh it off. "That's just how she is," he'd say. "Don't take it personally." But it was hard not to. I started to feel like I was competing with her for Daniel's attention, and losing. The dinner invitation. One Sunday evening, Margaret invited us over for dinner. She'd been unusually kind that week, even offering to help me with a work project. I thought maybe she was finally warming up to me. Daniel was thrilled. "See?" he said. "I told you she'd come around." We arrived at her house and the table was set beautifully. There was a roast in the center, fresh bread, and a bottle of red wine. Margaret poured us each a glass, her hands steady, her smile wide. But as I reached for my glass, she stopped me. "Wait," she said, her voice dripping with sweetness. "Let's toast first." We raised our glasses and I took a small sip. The wine tasted strange, bitter, almost metallic. I glanced at Daniel, who was already halfway through his glass. He didn't seem to notice anything wrong. But then within minutes, he started to pale. His hands trembled and he clutched his stomach. "I don't feel so good," he muttered before collapsing onto the floor. The hospital nightmare. The next few hours were a blur. Paramedics rushed Daniel to the hospital and I followed in a daze. Margaret insisted on coming too, her face a mask of concern. But as we sat in the waiting room, I couldn't stop replaying the events in my mind. That bitter taste. The way Margaret had stopped me from drinking too quickly. The look in her eyes when Daniel fell. The doctors worked tirelessly and thankfully, Daniel survived. But the diagnosis was clear. He'd been poisoned. The police were called, and when they questioned Margaret, she broke down. She confessed everything. She'd laced my glass with a deadly substance, hoping to get rid of me once and for all. She never intended to hurt Daniel, but in her haste, she'd mixed up the glasses. The trial and the truth. The trial was a media circus. Margaret's defense team tried to paint her as a grieving mother who'd made a terrible mistake, but the evidence was overwhelming. The police found the poison in her home, along with a diary detailing her plan to eliminate the problem, me. As the trial progressed, more shocking details came to light. Margaret had been manipulating Daniel for years, trying to control every aspect of his life. She saw me as a threat to that control, and she was willing to do whatever it took to get rid of me. The aftermath. The fallout was devastating. Daniel was heartbroken, torn between the woman who raised him and the wife he loved. We decided to cut all ties with Margaret, but it wasn't easy. Daniel struggled with guilt and anger, while I battled my own feelings of fear and betrayal. We started seeing a therapist to help us navigate the trauma. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. We needed to heal, not just for ourselves, but for each other. A new beginning. As time went on, we began to rebuild our lives. We moved to a new city, far away from the memories that haunted us. We found a new home, made new friends, and started new careers. It wasn't easy, but it was a fresh start, a chance to leave the past behind and focus on the future. The lesson learned looking back: it's hard to believe that something so horrifying could happen to us, but it did, and it taught me a valuable lesson. Sometimes the people you least expect are the ones who can hurt you the most, but it also showed me the strength of love, resilience, and the power of starting over. Moving forward. Today, Daniel and I are stronger than ever. We've learned to trust each other completely, and we've built a life filled with love and happiness. But we'll never forget what happened. It's a part of our story, a reminder of how far we've come and how much we've overcome. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever faced betrayal or overcome a seemingly impossible situation, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story like this one. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and always trust your instincts.